All right. Welcome, everybody. We're going to get started here. Welcome to the Center for Rural Affairs Rural Rapport. My name is Justin Carter. I'm a project associate for the Center for Rural Affairs. If you're not familiar with the center, we're a nonprofit, and we work to establish and maintain vibrant rural communities. We do this through rural policy advocacy, small business lending, and grassroots food and agriculture work. One of our programs that we're able to do through this work is called Greenhouse to Cafeteria. So Greenhouse to Cafeteria is a program where we've been able to work with FFA chapters and schools across the entire state on their outdoor education programs and revamping their greenhouses specifically. So we partnered with all kinds of instructors throughout the state. We provided some technical assistance and also some funding to help them purchase some greenhouse supplies and materials. And today we are lucky enough to have with us Shauna Roberson. Shauna is the greenhouse instructor at Garden County Public Schools out in Oshkosh, Nebraska. Excuse me, Oshkosh, Nebraska. So welcome, Shauna. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Justin. So I am new to agriculture teaching. I am working on my ag endorsement, and about 6 years ago, our ag teacher left. And so the school board asked me to take over the ag program, and with that came the greenhouse. Sarah had, our former ag teacher, is now our 4-H extension educator in the area, so it's really awesome that she's still in the area, can help us out. She helped build this greenhouse back in 2012, and so I kind of inherited the ag program and the greenhouse. I was around when she was building it, but as the biology teacher, so I do know a little bit of its history, but I never really had to take care of it until I took over that role a few years ago.
Okay, good to know. So you're pretty new to the program. Being the greenhouse instructor now, what are some of your goals with the greenhouse? What are you aiming to do with it?
Well, when I first took over the greenhouse, there was a lot of talk about production, but it's really not the right kind of greenhouse to be overly productive through the school months. I keep talking about our greenhouse as a classroom instead of as a production greenhouse. And so my goals are to teach kids basic plant needs, structure, anatomy, how to care for plants. We do some taking care of the greenhouse and some of things like that, but basically life skills that kids could take with them to garden outside, and some landscaping stuff too.
All right, cool. Well, from what I understand, you're going to give us a little tour of the greenhouse today.
Yeah, I will. So I'm going to flip my camera. So our greenhouse is a little bit unique. There's a gentleman in Alliance who specializes in geothermal greenhouses. And if you guys wanted to check out a YouTube video of his greenhouse, it's called Citrus in the Sun. And you can kind of see how his greenhouse is different. But I'm going to back up to the door a little bit, kind of give you a view of our greenhouse. So our greenhouse is 55 feet long and 18 feet wide. So you can see this back wall is our aluminum back wall with the insulation. And then we have a Lexan front. And because it's supposed to be a geothermal greenhouse, it's supposed to be heated and cooled a lot by the earth. But ours isn't a true geothermal, so we had to put in a heater. And then, of course, we needed a fan to help vent it. Our thermostat had been broken up until about 3 days ago. So we had some trouble keeping, so you're going to see some wilting and dead leaves because of that. And that's one of those things that I really talked to my kids about, is we knew the temperatures in our greenhouse were getting up to 130 degrees. How are we going to maintain plant life in those temperatures? And so we talked about needing to water more often and opening up the doors and seeing if we can help. So this is, my mother-in-law gave me a Swiss cheese plant, and I didn't have anywhere to put it in my house. So I brought it to the greenhouse and planted it. But it turns out that this is a pretty kind of cool plant. It's called a Swiss cheese plant because of the holes in it, so it looks like cheese, but it's also called a Monstera deliciosus because it will fruit in tropical areas. And because our greenhouse is so warm and humid, we have gotten our Swiss cheese to fruit in the past. So you can see that this is its fruit. Looks a lot like a weird ear of corn. You have to be really careful when you pick it though, because if you eat it before it's ripe, those shells on the outside are really acidic and they can really burn your mouth. So we waited until they were literally falling off the vine, and then the kids tried it, and they say it tastes a lot like a grape high chew with a pepper kick.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, and then here's a rubber plant, rubber tree. It started out about 3 foot tall when I put it in here, and as you can see, it's kind of vining all the way across the top of the greenhouse. And we have propagated it a couple times, so there's another one. I worked with the North Platte NRD in Scottsbluff. They have a true geothermal greenhouse that's a lot like ours. And so I was having trouble getting ours to produce, so I partnered with them, and they gave us some strawberries last year and suggested that we fill in our strawberry bed. You can notice that we have this clover, and it's kind of a pest. It kind of goes all over in between the strawberries. So we'll weed clover every now and then, but I don't think we'll ever completely get rid of it. And then we had white flies when I took it over, super, super bad. And so in an effort to kind of control white flies, we've planted in some plants that we hope can bring in beneficial insects and also deter some. So that's why the geraniums, because they don't smell great. And we have some Citronella Geraniums here to kind of help with that along the edge too. And we planted some cannas last year to help through the summertime grow up along our Lexan to help with some shading. We do have to put a shade cloth on our greenhouse because it'll get too hot in the spring and summer months. And it's not overly productive in the summer because I'm the only one taking care of it then. But we still have all these plants growing, so we still have to care for it and maintain it to a certain point. One of the things that we've had to deal a lot with was those white flies, like I was telling you about. And when I was working with Jennifer Berger at the North Platte NRD, and she has them pretty bad too. So she orders white fly wasp parasites. And so we ordered some of those in through the Greenhouse to Cafeteria grant, and we'll try those out when it gets pretty bad. But we did have mealybugs really bad. And so we ordered some ladybugs, and I haven't seen a mealybug since we've gotten the ladybugs in. So I think that helped out a ton. We don't have much growing right now because of our issues with our thermostat and whatever, but you can see we have a banana tree here. And if we look close, you can see that it's got a pup growing down here on the side, which here's its main stem back here in the back. Once it starts to bear fruit, it will grow this pup. And then once the fruit is gone, this main stem will die off, and then the plant continues to grow through the pup. We have a feed, well, and you can see our heater has this blower tube on it. And like I said, our greenhouse, we realized was 9 years old, and we were having some maintenance issues, some things. So the straps that they'd originally put on here to hold this vent up were deteriorating. So my kids, as part of one of their assignments, we had to try to figure out a way to get this back up. So they came up with this idea of using S-rings and then this rope, and then they're just wrapping it around to hold it up. So that's one of the ways that I keep the kids involved. We also got this Temp stick thermometer and humidity sensor that through the grant, the Greenhouse Cafeteria grant. And it's been awesome because we can get readings every hour to every 15 minutes, and we can set alerts. So it'll go to my phone and let me know when things are too hot or too humid. But we've just gotten to the point where we're starting to track that stuff, and the kids are kind of getting a kick out of it to see what the temperatures are in there and how the plants are reacting to those temperatures. As you can see, we have a zucchini growing. He's not liking this warm temperature. Our greenhouse is about 104 right now. I kicked off the fan so that we could hear, but he is growing a baby. And so the kids get a kick out of that. They want to pick it today, but I told them they had to wait until after our tour. We worked really hard for the zucchini because, well, there's not a lot of pollinators this time of year, and there's not a lot of light to keep this zucchini growing. So the kids have had to really work on it. And this is actually the plant that was attacked by the mealyworms the most. And so one of the things Jennifer at the North Platte NRD suggests is that if you take a Q-tip with rubbing alcohol on it and you put it on the mealybugs, it'll cause them to explode. The kids thought that was pretty cool. So they treated the plant with some alcohol. We have all 3 varieties of holiday cactus. So we have a Christmas cactus over here, and it did bloom at Christmas time, and it's doing pretty well. And then we have an Easter cactus over here. And then we do have a Thanksgiving cactus over here in the back corner. One of the coolest features we have is this huge fig tree. And we got tons and tons of figs off of it last fall. And you can kind of see there's a few growing here too. I took a whole bunch of the figs and I took them and made some strawberry fig jam, and the kids think that is the best stuff ever. They love to try that kind of stuff out. We also had some hot lemon peppers growing over the summer, but they were too hot to eat. So I made some hot jalapeno jelly out of them, and they think that's pretty awesome too, that we get to use that stuff. As far as getting stuff into our cafeteria, you can see that we really struggled with soil quality with this greenhouse. It used to be a whole entire open garden area. And when I first started working with Kirsten at Center for Rural Affairs, we did some crop rotations to help improve that soil quality, and that helped out a lot. But a few years ago, my administrator asked me just to put beds in and put garden soil in it. And we're getting a little bit better results with that. But this used to be an old irrigation ditch where the greenhouse is built. So the idea of this greenhouse is you dig this hole, but you keep the topsoil. And so then you set the topsoil off to the back, and then you build down about 4 feet into the earth to help that geothermal, and then you put your topsoil back in. Well, our topsoil wasn't very good to begin with, and so that was one of our huge struggles. Here's one of these Citronella Geraniums. They smell really awesome, a lot like citronella. And I kind of hit the nurseries and stuff when they're at the end of their growing season and have plants on sale. So this was actually an asparagus fern that was sold as a fairy plant, but you can see it's kind of gone out of control. We kind of have a large selection of succulents back here in the corner. Here's our Thanksgiving cactus and some of the other succulents that we have. They're a little dry. They're still recovering from their high temperatures. And teachers like to bring me plants. So this is a lemon tree that she was having trouble taking care of. And so I think it's going to bloom. We might actually get some lemons off of it. Kind of excited about that. What other questions do you guys have for me?
Well, thanks, Shauna. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. It's so unique to see like such a tropical greenhouse out in Western Nebraska. You guys, with the Swiss cheese plant and the rubber tree and the figs, how the students responded to growing such like things that aren't native to here?
They think it's pretty awesome. Like when we got to actually try the Swiss cheese plant, there were some of them who were like, no way, I'm not trying it, no how, no what. And then there was other kids like, yep, we like that, we love it. I have some kids who take the class just so they can eat figs during class off the tree. So it depends on the kid, and they enjoy it. And they like being outside. It gives them a break from being in the regular classroom. So this is kind of a unique plant. This is a mother-in-law tongue, and it actually has bloomed twice this year. And I've never seen one bloom before, like just in my house. So it's kind of cool to get to see these things that don't normally happen because our greenhouse is such a unique climate.
It seems like
here's one of our ladybugs.
Oh yeah.
My notebook.
It's so good to hear that those are working.
Yes. It's been fun.
You all have given your students a pretty high level of management, letting them come up with their own ideas and things like that. Has that been going pretty well?
It has. So I noticed that something was wrong with our zucchini plant and some of our other plants very early on. Like you can't see it from this bed over here, but he had beans that were almost a foot tall, and he had a zucchini and a cucumber growing. And we went on Christmas break and we came back and everything was almost dead. And so I said, well, what's going on? What's causing it? I said, I came in and watered every other day, so we know it's not a water issue. And so they got to looking, and the kid who owns that bed's a little bit squeamish. So he looked at the bottom of the leaves and he found the mealybugs, and he's just like, oh my gosh, can I get them? And that's kind of the interaction that we have. So we got our cell phones out and we zoomed in and took some really cool pictures of those mealybugs, but the kids still couldn't decide what it was. So we took them in and put them under our dissecting scopes. And that's how the kids finally identified it. So I said, now you know what it is, how are we going to get rid of it? So then we did some pest management, how to get rid of the things like that. And I said, they're just like, spray it. And I said, well, we could do that. But if you're going to eat the vegetables out of here tomorrow, can we do that? And so we kind of talked about some other alternatives and some things that were safe for us to breathe. Like they wanted to use 7 right off the bat. And I said, well, you guys can't use that in a confined space because you can't breathe it. And so we've explored some other options, kind of forcing them to think outside of their box. You know, we live in an area that's very corn driven agriculture, and fertilizing and spraying is probably more common than not, but getting the kids to think about other options is never a bad thing.
Right. No, that's great. And then you guys figured out how to explode them, right? With Q-tips?
Yeah.
It was on it?
Yep. And then the ladybugs are really good at taking care of mealybugs.
Okay.
And so we got those in. And then when I ordered those, again, I talked to Jennifer Burge at the North Platte NRD, and she said that she's ordered in ladybugs before, but she goes, you got to have some kind of plants that they like. So she goes, they really enjoy eggplants. So if you could get some eggplant growing. So we've got some started in the classroom that we're hoping to transplant out here. And we have a lot of plants started in the classroom. We had mice super, super bad. I mean, so bad that you can see these trays on the shelf right here. We'd plant our seeds in those, put saran wrap over them, and the mice would get underneath the saran wrap, burrow through the potting soil, and crack open the seeds. Like my kids always want to grow watermelon. So you could see this cracked open seeds on the top of the soil after the mice had gone through. So we have a mice specialist. We have a hunter trapper who takes care of our mice pest problem that's what his job is in the greenhouse. So, and I let them come up with the solutions that they wanted to. Like I told them they couldn't use any glue traps for a while, and because I just think they're nasty. And they're like, why? And I explained that, well, if you don't check them on a regular basis, then you have a problem. Plus, they also catch some of our beneficial insects. So they've tried some repellents. They've tried some sticky traps. We did try them, but they just like the regular traps the best, seems like.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
But because of that, we've been starting our seeds in the classroom instead of out in the greenhouse.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah, I know you mentioned that you had gotten a few things from the Center for Rural Affairs Greenhouse Cafeteria grant. You mentioned the ladybugs, the temperature sensor. Was there anything else that was really beneficial to the greenhouse?
Yes, we're going to put in a drip system. We haven't got a chance to do that.
Okay.
I was going to do it last week, and when it was so hot out here, the kids begged me not to. So we're actually starting on that today to put that drip system in. And we're really hoping that'll help keep our plants more regulated. And our humidity in here fluctuates a ton. So we're hoping that'll help with that fluctuation and keep our plants a little bit healthier. Plus, it takes one person almost 25 minutes to water the whole entire greenhouse. And they want to spend other things doing instead of watering. And then if we water and we've got mud in the beds, the kids don't want to mess with the beds a whole lot. So we wanted a system with a timer that we could set up so it'd water either at night or in the morning, so that it's not terrible for the kids when we're out here.
Yeah, that's so beneficial. It seems like that can maybe open you up to a little bit more summer work potentially too.
And I do have a couple kids who came in and took care of the greenhouse over spring break. So that's always been kind of a goal, is to have the kids take care of it even when we're not in session, more than me taking care of it. So I think we're getting there. We're getting closer. The other thing that the Center for Rural Affairs has done is I've worked with Kirsten Bailey a ton, and she is always a phone call or email away. And she's given me tons and tons of like great advice. Like I didn't know this Swiss cheese plant was such a big deal until I talked to Kirsten. She said these guys at greenhouses sell for quite a bit. So that's one of the ideas that the kids have been tossing around. You know, I'm an FFA advisor, and fundraising is always an issue. So we talked about how could we use the greenhouse and to make money off of it. And so we talked about starting our own house plants and selling them even to our local florist. We have a new florist in town. So that's one of the avenues we're looking at. But we knew we had to get our pest under control before we could even explore that option a whole lot. So that's one of those things we've been working on. We have a large variety of succulents. You can kind of see, here's kind of a cool one.
Oh, yeah.
We talked about propagating those and putting, like, the grocery store here for Mother's Day last year had these little teacups with a succulent in it that they were selling. So those are some of the ideas but I'm kind of letting the kids run with it. There's every year a group of girls who kind of enjoy the fairy garden aspect. So we mess with that a little bit. Our outdoor classroom is a pollinator garden. And so we'll start some plants for that too. And we'll kind of start landscaping that area and getting the kids involved on how to bring in more pollinators. which will eventually help our greenhouse and what's growing in it too, because some of those pollinators will migrate in through the vents.
Gotcha. Well, Shauna, thanks so much. It's good to see you guys making such great progress. And I know that houseplant idea sounds really creative. Houseplants are so popular right now. And I guess you don't often hear about getting your houseplants locally, especially in a place like Oshkosh.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, thanks again. I think that's about it on time.
Okay.
Take care. Looking forward to seeing what comes out of the greenhouse. And yeah, we'll
All
talk.
right. Thank you.
All right. Thanks.